Welcome to PartialArc.com. Don't do that.
In the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war. And a lot of weird shit. Roll to seize!
Welcome to Roll to Seize. This is episode 60, our 5th year anniversary. I'm your host, Jay Jones, joined by my co-host and Warhammer enthusiast, Andrew Dickinger.
You say 5-year anniversary.
Yes.
But I feel like it's more like 500?
Yeah.
5,000?
Look, I started making these scratches on the wall, and I did it. Now, to be fair, there's not 500 scratches. That's not how time works. There isn't 100 years in a single year. 100 years? There's 100 days in a single year? I'm losing my mind.
I don't know, but like I looked over and you only made like a few scratches, and I came back after lunch and like half the room was filled, so...
Well, I'm trying to catch up. You know, I made scratches in the Brown Library, but that's gone.
I'm sure they'll be okay, totally okay with you scratching all of the crystal everywhere.
Yeah. This scratching crystal is fine. Nobody cares about that.
The sentient crystal certainly won't mind.
Oh, boy. But, hey, everyone, as if you haven't listened to our last episode, and this is your first episode, weird first episode to come into, because this is our 40K finale. It is our final episode of Roll to Seize. We shared our reasons in the last episode, so again, if this is your first, this must be the weirdest, like... those limited run miniseries that you're like, oh, I wonder how long this show is.
Maybe they're running
two episodes?
Maybe they're running it in reverse order.
Oh, interesting.
They're going to end in a weird place.
Yeah, you're going to go all the way into the past when our Vox equipment wasn't as nice as it is now. And you're going to enter a dark time called 7th edition.
Yes.
Enjoy that. We didn't. But we're not there now. We're in 8th edition. And seeing as this is our final episode, we wanted to talk about, as we typically do, some seizes here at the top, but also take some time at the end to talk about what we're excited about this year and let's call it predictions and our very 100% accurate prediction crystal ball that we've got right here that is always correct eventually. And as well as talk about like what we're doing with our armies and what we're looking forward to for the rest of the year.
And maybe occasionally do a little look back as to where we've been. You gotta come full circle. Know where you've been to know where you are, Jay.
Oh, man. That's so profound. Wait a second. You're reading that out of a book. You just picking these books off the shelf?
I mean, they're crystal books.
Is this an entire category of self-help books? Why is this in this library?
Because it's made of crystal.
Oh, that's fair. That's interesting. Can you imagine you find like a shitty book, but it's made of like magic crystal? You're like, I guess we got to protect this relic. God,
also,
all of these comments are terrible.
They didn't list this on the sides, but you should totally wear eye protection when trying to read these things.
Oh, yeah.
Turns out the light and beams and crystal and refraction.
Yeah, they definitely didn't make it so that you could, easily flip through these bad boys. I guess it's because they're just filled with so much knowledge.
I feel like maybe you're supposed to read these in a way that's not eyes, but...
Wait, what? You mean like feeling the book?
Like psychically?
Like psychically too? Maybe. Maybe that's why it's like burning out your retina when you try to stare into it.
Yeah, I mean, don't the Eldari use weird shit like crystal psychic
Do you think it's like an eclipse? Don't look directly at the crystal book?
Well, it's too late now. I've looked at hundreds.
Oh, no. That's really why we're closing this podcast down, because we've gone completely bonkers. Because we've stared at these books too long.
Yeah.
But that's very fair. But this is our last episode. We're going to have some fun. Talk about mistakes we made, and even though this is our finale, we might come back in the future in some form of fashion once things have cooled down with all the chaos spawns running around and things like that. Very excited for that time. But to kick things off, as we always do, and for our last time today, we'll be talking about our Seizes of the Month. Our Seizes of the Month, again, if this is your first episode, weird. Our Seizes of the Month is where we talk about our seizes, meaning a mistake we made in a recent tournament and what lessons we learned. Now, Andrew, you've attended so many tournaments lately, so you've got to have just a basket to pick out of, right?
All right. Well, I've been busy, and there's been a lot of interruptions and book sickness.
Yeah, you've been reading a lot of books.
So yeah, I've unfortunately missed the last two tournaments. One because I moved, and that was unavoidable. And the second one because I was really sick out of nowhere.
Yeah,
and
your
it
insides
sucked.
moved.
Yes.
And that was a whole different thing.
If you've seen the movie, you know,
no.
Oblivion, you know, there was stuff happening, and it wasn't supposed to
My
be.
insides were just an Oblivion landscape. Nice.
But yeah, it was not comfortable. But I am gonna try and start to attend the league that we have near us. It's just in fact on the opposite side of town from where I work. So it's not the easiest to get there, but I'll figure something out.
Yay! It's fun though. I'm a part of the same league, and I really like it a lot. Again, I think we've plugged it here before, but it's the Game Empire Pasadena League run by Jeff Poole, top 8.
He's all right.
Famously Jeff Poole.
He's okay.
2 LVOs ago, great guy. But basically, we've been having a lot of fun. So no recent tournament news or seizes for Andrew.
But I will be talking about something afterwards. Jay, I want you to go first.
Oh, okay.
Because you have an actual seize.
I do have an actual seize. If anyone thought I stopped making mistakes, still having it. So
plenty.
As I've said before, I've returned to the comfortable arms of the Eldari, my people. And basically running a
bunch of pointy-eared bastards.
A bunch of pointy-eared son of a guns. Everyone loves them. Well, I find that people are less frustrated with them these days as long as you don't show up with a literal just 1,000 planes. Then everyone's totally fine with playing Eldari. But if you show up with more than 3 planes, you're gonna get some side-eyed looks. Ooh, how many planes you got there? Oh, well, I guess a Crimson Hunter Exarch is different from a Crimson Hunter in terms of data slates. Oh, yeah, I guess you can bring 6 of those planes. Anyways, I'm not running that. But I do have 3 planes in my list because they are good. I have 3 Crimson Hunter Exarchs. I have 3 Night Spinners, which has been really fun. I've been looking at them forever, and I forget where I saw this. It was like months ago.
I think you watched a battle report.
Yeah, I think I watched a battle report, and somebody was like, "Yeah, you know, I'm using a Night Spinner, just testing it out. It's interesting, you know. It's strength 7, no AP unless you roll a 6, then it's -4. But if you, wound, it's 2 damage." And I was watching it, and I was like, "No, it's not. It's not 2 damage." And I flipped through the book, and I was like, "Oh my god, it's 2 damage."
It was enough of a shock on Jay's system that he called me, and then immediately started talking about these Night Spinners, which, of course, I'm on board with any crazy idea.
Yeah, of course. So. This sounds insane. Go for it.
But the thing that really sold me beyond just the 2 damage for them, which is a big sell. I mean, anytime you can get auto 2 damage, I mean, my list has 30 flash kits in it, which all are auto 2 damage.
Yeah, it's a lot of 2 damage.
And, previously to the FAQ, things like Ludas and stuff like that. 2 damage is a big deal, especially when you're dealing with 60 Plague Bearers and stuff like that.
60 Plague Bearers, or like, if we're still talking about demons, they're great about clearing out Nurglings, because Night Spinners, if you don't know, they're a pretty solid tank, 12 wounds, T7, 3-up save, but they have range 48 guns that are 2d6 shots.
That's the thing that sold me.
Yeah, 2d6, not 1d6, bad.
But 2d6 shots, no line of sight required.
No line of sight. Hit anything out of line of sight. So if you got like Nurglings hiding somewhere and you hit them with 2 damage shots, they get none of that disgustingly resilient. You're just popping Nurglings with every 2 ones.
Yeah, so the real benefit of them is unlike normal mortar teams, because mortar teams are almost like a fact of life in 40k and competitive right now. And unlike normal mortar teams, and even the Wyvern, which is just basically a souped up mortar team.
Oh yeah,
the Wyvern being the closest in association with the Night Spinners, but they're still just strength 4 and really just intended for screen units and small infantry units.
Yep.
Whereas when you have 3 Night Spinners that are, once again, they're Eldari, stupid plain tanks.
Yeah,
flying tanks,
and they're so expensive.
Yeah, they're not at all. They're when he told me the cost of one, I was like, why aren't you using those?
They're they're 112 points. It's very expensive.
Why weren't you using those like 2 years ago?
Well, they haven't been 112 points forever. They changed in Chapter Approved.
Yeah.
They were much more expensive before. I mean, not by a lot, but they were still more expentive. Really, the moral of the story is
130 points would be a bargain for that
I just didn't
thing.
know they were 2 damage. I thought they were 1 damage. I'm like, I'll just take cheap like Shadow Weaver support guns, and it's way cheaper, but no, 2 damage.
But again, the advantage of them is not only a T7 3+ save, 12 wounds or 13 wounds?
12 wounds.
12 wound tank.
Only the Wave Serpent gets that extra wound.
Yeah, right. It's that compartment in the back.
Yeah,
it's got bump in the trunk.
It's just filled with pillows to absorb the shots.
But the fact that it's a tough vehicle. It's most of the time in the backfield, which means it's not easily accessible. It has an auto 2 damage strength 7 weapon, so it can engage elite infantry really well.
It can engage vehicles too, everything but like T8 really effectively. And like, I mean,
it has fly, which means you can't catch it in combat.
Can't catch it. It's the one thing that all regular Imperium tanks wish they had. I mean, they'll have soon. You've got the Repulsor, and now Adeptus Mechanicus is getting what Andrew believes might be the most beautiful model they've ever released.
Okay.
Andrew, please comment on why you think this is the most beautiful model. Everyone wants to know.
That is a straight lie. Listen, I love what GW has done with the game. I love 90% of the kits they release.
And it's only gotten better.
And up until that point.
Oh, no. They hit a cliff. They got to the top of the mountain. They went right over the top.
Because AdMech has struggled by not having a transport for a long time because most of the units are fairly slow.
Mm-hmm.
Now, granted, they did throw in the data slate for free for the Terex drill, but the problem is that the drill, unless you scratch build, is an expensive Forge World model.
It made a very heavy resin.
Yes, and so even though the drill is incredible, it's not as easily accessible for most players, and so everybody was excited about them getting a transport, but man, when they released that thing, I mean, it looks like a shoebox surrounded by a bike tire. I mean, it's one of the most hideous things I've ever seen.
Most people relate it to like a flying toaster.
It's like...
I love that the Adeptus Mechanicus, and it is so perfectly on brand, because they're just computers. So like they don't think about like artistry, right? They're like down there like, it is highly efficient, the gas mileage is amazing.
Hear you say that, yet all of their stuff is incredibly ornate and well crafted and like perfectly like a perfect facsimile of the greatest innovations they've ever had. And you're saying that this is the opposite of that. I agree with you, and it doesn't make any sense. And they were talking about lost technology, but I'm pretty sure a standard vacuum hovercraft is
It kind of looks like a boat from like the 60s that they just found and were like,
it's a boat. It's like
strap a laser on it.
It's like the sea hovercraft that they have in 20th century Earth. The Marines that carry tanks and stuff occasionally. It's just a box with the hover on the bottom, and I was just like, this thing better have some dope ass rules, or I'm just gonna be like overly disappointed in the fact that they didn't get a walker, because a lot of what makes AdMech cool and iconic in my eyes is that most of their things, like the Onagers and the both of the either the Dragoons or the Ballistari, they're walkers. Like, walkers are kind of the thing for them.
They got spindly legs, even down to the individual guys. They just got little, you look under those robes, it's just little crab legs walking around.
And I think it would have been rad if, like, especially because they're like, they think that, Necrons are abominations against the machine god, and Necrons have lots of walkers, so I think it'd be cool if they had a cool, like, 6-legged beetle walker, and it just was awesome.
Well, now they're challenging Necrons at their Grav game. They're like, you think you got Grav game? Oh, we got Grav game.
Except that I have to read the fluff behind it when they release it, but I mean, it's not Grav though. It's a vacuum hovercraft.
Does it look? I think it might just. I think it's got to be Grav, right? If it really is just a vacuum hovercraft vehicle that has fly, how does that work? It's just like it inflates itself so much that it like floats like a zeppelin.
Well, if it can't be, because if it's like a regular modern day hovercraft, they break their seal once it gets too high off the ground, so that doesn't work. So
hey, listen,
we'll find out.
The Adeptus Mechanicus, they got a lot of technology. Now, did we go on a very crazy tangent there? Yes.
About that, yes.
Do we care?
It
Not
needed
really.
to be talked about.
Had to be addressed. Look, it's going to tie back in a really meaningful way to this season, I promise. It won't. So, as I was saying, I've got 3 Night Spinners. I've got 3 Crimson Hunter Exarchs because they're great. I've also got my classic Seer Council, my 10 Warlock Skyrunner Conclaves, armed with their Singing Spears, and I've got my Farseer in there who's backing them up. I got another Farseer to throw guide and stuff on him. I think in this iteration, this has changed a lot recently, so we'll talk about what we're working on in the future.
He's been doing manipulations.
I've been doing a lot of tweaks since this game, but I believe I think it actually had 1 Farseer for that game, because to fit everything in. So it was only 1 Farseer with Guide and Doom, so I didn't have Fortune running around, which is actually fine. Fortune makes him a little bit more durable, obviously, because it gives him that 5+ ignore wounds, similar like Disgustingly Resilient, but really the most important thing for them is Protect, which is a 3-up invul, and Conceal, which is a -1.
Another -1.
Yeah, which is stupid and annoying, and
why do you need the 5+ Disgustingly Resilient if you just prevent the damage in the first place?
Exactly. That's how I think about it. Just don't let them interact with my unit at all. A thing that makes Warhammer really fun. Everyone loves it. So
Jay is just getting. He was upset that he wasn't on board with the 7th edition mentality, and now
I
he's
just brought it back.
just bringing it back, Jay.
No, you killed one of the models in there. You're not supposed to do that. So I was playing a good buddy of mine, and he was actually running a version of a list that you're seeing a lot these days, which is, it's not exactly the same. I'm not saying like he net listed or anything like that. He obviously put his own flavor to it, but it has influence from what you're seeing a lot with Adeptus Custodes. No, they don't have Adeptus in front. They're just Custodes. And it's this Custodes Caladius tank craze that's going on right now. So much so that the Caladius tank is sold out on Forge World. I believe also the Telemann. I believe this is all kind of brought about from some fame from the recent big tournament, the Bay Area Open, where the player Jeff in Control Robinson won, beating out Jim Vessel. If you guys aren't familiar with the competitive scene, Jim Vessel has been a player who's been dominating for months and months.
Very
at
strong
tournaments.
demon player.
Yeah, he's got an amazing demon build. A lot of people are now literally just running that same build because it's so good. And a lot of it comes down to generalmanship, right? It's not just the list.
I mean,
everything
that's the beauty of 8th edition, unlike 7th edition, is that it's all generalship.
Yeah.
Like, you could, use the best list in the game, but if you don't know how to use it, then you're not gonna win.
Very true. And Jim running this Chaos list was pretty much undefeated for a while. I think he'd lost maybe one other tournament with the exception of this, and Jeff beat him on the top table at BAO, the Bay Area Open. And he was running a list similar to this, where it has like all the... Actually, I wouldn't say it has all the Custodes classics. It has like the new Custodes classics, which is... His list had 2 Caladius tanks. The list I played against had 3. Caladius tanks, if you don't know...
Are so good.
You're going to see them everywhere. So let me give you the rundown. They are, I believe, 14 wounds, T7... They fly, so just like my Night Spinners and most Eldari things, they can leave combat, so you can't just tag them.
Turns out when you shoot guns, flying is the best thing for you.
Indeed. And they have a gun that is, I believe it's 60-inch range or at least 48-inch range. It's very long. It's like
the
whole
top
board.
gun, the D3 damage gun?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's 48.
Yeah, I think it's at least 48, maybe 60. But it's 8 shots, -3 AP, D3 damage, and the tank hits on 2s. And you put these tanks... next to their captain, I think he's like Valador, or I forget his name. He's the super commander of all the Custodes, and he gives them reroll 1s to hit, and I believe he also gives them reroll 1s to wound. So you've got this strength 8, -3, D3 damage gun, firing 8 shots, hitting on 2s, rerolling 1s. The tank is also, I believe, when you put them near like a banner guy from Custodes, they're -1 to hit.
Well, you also forgot that they have a native invulnerable save, and they have a -2 to charges against them.
They have a 5-up invul and a -2 to charge them, and they're not that expensive. So you're going to see 3 of these things because they can fly, and they fly 14 inches, so they're fast. You can't tag them in close combat. They shoot amazingly well. They're hard to kill when you put them near like the reroll bubbles and the banner that gives him -1 to hit and the 5-up invul. They're incredible. So he was running 3 of these. He had Valdor, the super badass king of the Custodes. I'm sorry, I don't know his name.
Valdor's Margarine. I don't remember.
Yes, Margarine.
Margarine, yes.
I am Lord Margarine.
I believe his second
players,
name starts with an M, I remember.
Yeah, Margarine, for sure.
Margarine, yes.
And of course, the guy back there with the Vexilla something. I don't know. He's got the flag that makes it hard to hit things, a -1 to hit. And he also had what was also part of the Jeff in Control's list, which is really clever. It's the Graia detachment from Adeptus Mechanicus, which what that means is Graia has a stratagem. I believe it's a 1 CP stratagem, which is amazing.
Yes.
A lot of different codexes have this type of stratagem that if a psychic power goes off and it's within 24 inches of any of their units, it doesn't have to be a psyker, just any of their units, then you can spend that 1 CP, and on a 4-up, you just cancel the psychic power.
Steel Mind, Iron Logic.
They
logic psychic powers
logic it away. Doesn't add up.
No, that doesn't make sense.
3 + 2 doesn't equal 6. This is heresy. Goodbye. So yeah, they basically, AOL it away, and basically that shuts down a lot of powerful psychic abilities. If you know there's a key thing you need to shut down, You just pop that stratagem, and yes, it's a 4+, so you can fail, but just you've got enough CP that you just reroll that 4, and it's a very likely chance you're going to stop that psychic power. Then he had a Blood Angels detachment with a bunch of scouts, and of course 2 Smash Captains who
because
fly
they're back
in with hammers and punch you in the face. Yeah, now they can go over screens again because they fly.
And they're literally back in black because, they take on the black because...
Yeah! I don't know where that sound came from. That wasn't from my voice. Andrew just put sunglasses on and then something belted from one of these book aisles. It's very terrifying.
But yeah, with the fly change back to combat, Smash Captains are actually a thing again.
Oh, yeah. And they hit still very hard.
Yeah.
So all of that, and finally... one last key unit that I'd like to talk about. There might have been like other small things, like I'm sure like an HQ guy from Adeptus Mechanicus. Who cares? What I really want to talk about, though, is a 4-man unit of Custodes Terminators. And this is something we're seeing pop up more and more. This Terminator thing is like leaking out into a lot of lists. Like this started out like a year ago at BAO when Don Husson brought the 10 Blightlord Terminators, and everybody was like, Terminators? Well, what is this, right? And now Custodes Terminators are coming out because they're really hard to frickin' kill. I think they have 4 wounds apiece.
4 wounds, yeah.
And they're 2-up armor save, they've got a 4-up invul, and they hit like a truck.
T5, 5 attacks each, and then if things get killed, they get more attacks.
And they have the spears where they're like strength 10, a million damage per swing or whatever, and it's like, holy shit. And if you kill one of them, they just pop that stratagem where everybody gets the additional attacks because that one guy died. They're like, you killed our friend, we'll kill you more. You're like, why? So
very good.
Basically set up this game, and it was actually going pretty well for me in the beginning of the game. My planes flew out. I killed 1 Caladius of the 3, and my Night Spinners and everything else brought the other one down to like pretty much medium health. And I moved my Seer Council up into position. They jumped up. They got quickened, so they moved into position and shot a bunch of guys, killed a bunch of these Graia guys who were going to cancel my psychic powers. I did Fire and Fade and flew them back behind cover. I was looking pretty good. Then he moves up, fires at a bunch of things, kills a plane. The other one plane is damaged, another plane is fine, and he flies his Smash Captains up. Smash Captain goes into a plane, kills the second plane, so I really only have 1 left at this point. So I was like, ugh, that hurts. Second turn, I kill the second Caladius, wound the third one, start just punishing and killing. I killed both of his Smash Captains, I believe, that turn because they were just sitting out there right in my line, so they died pretty quickly. They only have a 3-up invul. And then things turned because I had my Seer Council kind of in the middle of the board behind some cover, and his Terminators dropped down. This is where my Seize kind of comes in. All of his guys charged into my Seer Council, killed a good amount of them, not half, but a good amount of them. I actually failed, I think, like a morale check, which always happens when I'm like, well, if I roll a 6, I'll lose one of these guys. Oh, look at that, I rolled a 6. Yeah! But I lost like maybe half the Seer Council to a lot of close combat, a mix between just a Custodes on bike, like a captain on bike, some Caladius firepower, and of course all these Terminators coming in, swinging a million attacks, doing a ton of damage. And yes, I have a 3-up invul, but in close combat I don't have all those minuses to hit, so you're going to hit them pretty easily.
Yep.
And
what, they just hit on 2s though?
1s and 2s that go through, that's killing like a bike per guy. So my Seer Council was pretty heavily wounded. I flew everything back to kind of regroup in my backfield. And this is where my Seize comes in. I'm thinking Terminators. They're slow. They can only move like 5. I'm fine. So I don't really move my Night Spinners and some of my troops back far enough because I just assess in my head. I didn't measure. I just like quickly assessed, yeah, those Terminators are slow. They can, they got really close before because they deep struck in and charged, but I'm fine, right? But I didn't measure. Sure enough, Terminators move up. They charge, and they make the charge on a Night Spinner and a bunch of troops, kill the Night Spinner, tie down the troops. Also forgot that Custodes have the rule where they're OBSEC.
Yep, and everything's OBSEC.
Which I completely forgot about, and the Terminators were on an objective, and I had 2 other objective, like, OBSEC units close to it, but only 1 guy from each unit. So his 4 Terminators outnumbered my 2 guys that were within range, even though they were OBSEC, and he took that objective, which was a huge swing in points. And that's when the game started to spiral out of control because those Terminators had a free turn to charge in and kill something. And that's the thing about units that move slow. even if a unit only moves 4 inches, if it moves 5, if it doesn't move like 8 or 7, like some of the faster things in the game, a charge is the same for every unit. A charge is a free 7 inches on average to 12 if you get really lucky, right?
Can be the great equalizer.
Exactly. So a slow unit can actually move very fast if they charge. And if I had just moved a little bit further back, they wouldn't have made their charge, and I would have had a full turn with an undamaged, most of my army undamaged, to just fire into these Terminators and do some potential dangerous damage. But because I didn't check and because I didn't measure, they were in my back lines just cleaning up the heart of my army. And by then, my Seer Council was weakened. Half of my Night Spinners were gone. My troops were just all had to back out of combat and couldn't fire because they were tied up with the Terminators.
You were down to 1 plane, right?
Yeah, and I was down to 1 plane flying around, and he still had the 1 Caladius left, still with a couple wounds, and it was just going nuts on killing my remaining Seer Council and plane and everything, and then the game kind of snowballed from there, I lost. I lost the game, rightfully so. Great general as well, but yeah, that's where it really just went sideways for me, is making sure that I didn't triple check that. I always do this now, and I try most of the time. I didn't do it for this game, but I'm like, can I put myself in a position that even if that person happens to roll that 12, will they still make the charge? And I always want to be in a position where no matter what, you will not make that charge, and that's a very safe position to be in.
Yeah, I mean, you try to hedge your bets as much as you can and not leave things to chance. Now, granted, if you leave your guys 11 to 12 inches away, an 11 to 12 inch charge away, so, you know, almost maximum distance charge, there's a very low chance that you'll get caught. But if it's not worth the chance of it happening at all, then just don't do it.
And that's the thing. If this hadn't happened, it would have been a very different outcome at the end of the game. I'm not saying I would have won, but it would have been a much tighter game. But because of that, and I think up to that point, I had actually been leading on points because of all the things I was killing. But it's because I did leave that to chance, and it wasn't worth it. Like, I should have just moved one of those Night Spinners back and a couple troops back. It wouldn't have made a difference.
It's not like you had to choose a lesser of two evils and like, oh, I guess I have to leave those there if I go do this. You literally just gave yourself a handicap for no reason.
Pretty much. And I mean, that's what's so fun about this game is it's a dice-based game, but there are things like people say all the time, like the game is won and lost in the movement phase, and that was a loss in the movement phase. I could have controlled that situation perfectly. I could have guaranteed that he would have never made any charge no matter how hot he rolled, and I just didn't. So that's my C's of the month, and I guess my last C's of Roll to C's. So odd. But yeah, I'm still making terrible mistakes, obviously. But a really fun game, and I'm obviously iterating on the list, so we'll see how that changes in the future. But good times all around. Andrew, what is your C's?
So obviously in recent memory, I haven't been able to play, unfortunately. At the same time, it has allowed me to get a lot of the work done on my orcs because I'm all in and I am playing 30 flash kits and 3 Death Roll of battle wagons.
Ooh.
And it's gonna shake this. You watch, Jay. It'll shake the scene up.
It's gonna shake up that meta.
That meta.
That Death Roll of flash kits meta.
And I can't wait to use, of course, the Super Shaka because, oh my god,
so fun.
Jay, with the games that Jay and I may play against each other, his planes are so looking forward to.
Yeah, they're
gonna
die very fast. Well, he can only hit me on 6s. Oh, he's more decking. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, he hits me on 5s. Oh, my plane's dead.
Oh, well, as long as you don't roll a 7 or higher in strength. Well, okay, that's higher.
Well, there it goes.
How many shots? 2d6. Oh, it's shooting again.
Oh, it's -5. Well, that's good. Goodbye, plane.
So yeah, I can't wait to use that. I'm very excited to play the list. But more, I just wanted to talk about, 5 years is a long time, and we had a lot of growth and a lot of evolution, you could say.
Oh, yeah.
Coming to where we are now within, not only as players, but as, members within the hobby and stuff. And so I kind of want to just like talk about, what I think is the greatest lesson I've learned in these past 5 years.
Yeah.
And I mean, there are tons of lessons and lots, I even wrote an article on our website with regards, stepping into the hobby and the competitive scene. But I think the greatest thing I learned is commitment. And what does that mean? My biggest problem in the game is that I didn't ever really devote to one list. And I feel like, in general, I could have been a much better player if I did what, like, even Jay has done and, like, Nick Nadavades and all these other people where they just grab a singular idea and they really try and iron out the kinks. And because even though it's been fun, especially for this podcast, to jump around and do all these different individual ideas, it is a nice breath of fresh air to just like have one thing and to just be using that one thing and not next week be doing something else and literally just going in cold in every single tournament, because I've done that like for almost 5 years.
Just almost every tournament, every single time. It's like, now I'm Tyranids. Guys, I came up with a list for Tau. I'm back in. Guys, I came up with a list for
okay,
Adeptus
so
Mechanicus.
I mean, Tau Tanks is there's a real deal there.
That was one of the most amazing things ever, where you were like, Jay, I changed my list for LVO. I'm going all Tau Tanks. I'm like, it's a week away. Like, I'm beating them all tonight.
Now, granted, there is legitimacy, especially if you use the Forge World Hammerheads right now. It's 16-shot Hammerheads that are hitting on 2s is no joke.
Uh-oh, Andrew. Get it out. Just get that thought out of your mind.
But yeah, so there's been a lot of lessons learned going in, but I feel like patience being one of the greatest lessons that I think Jay has had to learn is, don't just murder everything, Jay. Like you're recencies. Like you could have just like stepped back and been patient and thought about it.
Yeah, let me talk a little bit about that. For me, I think I think it's definitely playing more to the mission. And, like, knowing, like, okay, I do have to hold objectives. That's important. Not just murder.
There are 2 steps, Jay.
It is half of the points in the game. And lately, I've been trying to take more secondaries, because we play ITC pretty much 100% of the time whenever we play games of Warhammer. Good amount of the secondaries are always objective-based secondaries, and I just never picked those in the past. I'm like, old school, for sure. What are the other ones that let me kill things? That. And, like, I used to, like, I'd look at somebody's list and I'd be like, well, you don't have a lot of tanks, so I can't take Big Game Hunter. You don't have a lot of characters, so I can't take Headhunter. And it's just, like, all kill-based. And recently, especially thanks to the League, which I've been playing in, I've been trying out a lot of, like, recon and ground control. And things that actually require you to think about where you need to be objective-wise. And that helps you become a better player. Am I a better player? Probably not. But it can help you.
I would say you're a better player. I would say
thank
that,
you, sir.
At least comparatively, I know I can't remember where we were exactly 5 years ago, but it wasn't in a great place. But
probably not.
As far as today, you're definitely more consistent because you step back and you take a greater look of the perspective. Because the one thing with those secondary objectives that the game does that was a hard lesson for us to learn is that the ones that are more objective-based and territorial-based put the onus on your opponent to stop you from getting those, whereas all of the kill ones are much easier for your opponent to prevent.
Indeed, because they can just hide that stuff.
Or just make it so it's, you have to overcommit to and then get those objectives, in which case then you're in their ball field, and that's not a good place to be.
Very true.
So for me, with regards to commitment, it's a weird thing. Like, I should have learned this lesson from last year's Hammer of Wrath, when the closest I had come to committing to a full-time army was my Death Watch.
And that's when you did very well.
And I would have had second place, but the bastards
they tied.
But yeah, I heavily devoted to a list, and I got down to where it was actually like 99% painted, which I've never had an army that was that
amazing,
close.
Right?
Which, that, as they say, and as has been proven, a painted army plays better than an unpainted one.
It does.
So
I've had a lot more of my models painted than I've ever had in the history of playing this game.
And you're doing better.
And they're doing better. It just makes sense.
The dice gods are fickle, and they like seeing pretty things.
But they love a sweet paint job.
They want that glitter.
Yeah.
A little shine. But yeah, so I should have learned the lesson from that, and I think the problem is that, one, my brain, and I get too many ideas, and then I branch out to too many ideas, and then like I paper too much versus play, which is, I think, one of the biggest faults I have, is that I think an idea is too sound before actually legitimately testing it, and then jumping in and testing it in a tournament that's competitive that you pay money for is probably not the best venue
to test
that.
Yeah.
Like the crisis bombs and stuff like that.
I think this is really going to work. And if it doesn't, I only have to play it 3 games in a row.
And then also realize that I spent so much time preparing it only for it to then not work.
Which is why something like a League is really great, because you get in one game and you're like, okay, that was a terrible idea, but you only had to do that for one game, and maybe you like didn't fully paint them or fully build them, or you proxy because it's more of a friendly environment, so you can test it without having to fully commit to something.
Yeah, whereas like, you know, with some of the other ideas for armies that I've had, like the Gene Stealer cult, and even in the past with my NIDS and a lot of the wind getting taken out of my sails with that army, I think that's more of an aesthetic thing versus an actual competitive thing, because I want to be a high-level player with a faction that's unexpected. Now, I think orcs are gaining ground. I think that people are starting to realize that now they can't just rely on a Ludobomb to do all the work for them.
True.
That they actually have to, like, finagle the army to actually function beyond Ludus. I know it's a weird concept.
I can't just spend this stratagem and then just shoot everything twice and win.
I feel like, yet again, the Ludobomb, like, I felt flashbacks from 7th edition of people just having singular Death Ball units, just Death Stars, that do all the work, and then all the rest of the army is ablative. I feel like that's so much of the Ludobomb was that. Now, unfortunately for me, the one sad part of losing Mob Up on Anything But Boys was that I didn't use it for Ludas. I used it for all of the other units I wanted to use it with. Like 20 Meganobs was super fun. Man, speaking of our friend Jeff Poole, who's a great player, talk about panic on a person's face when you spend an entire Tau shooting phase firing at a Meganob unit and you only kill 3 guys, and there's
like,
20
well,
of them.
that shouldn't have happened. Yikes.
It's just like, oh no. Now, granted, in the next turn, he killed them down to 3 from, you know, previously.
Tau, baby.
I also roll terrible saves, as Jay knows. But yeah, I mean, there's just been this air of like, I don't know where I was going. I was in this weird flux for 40K for a long time because I couldn't find an army that I could really bite into. And it's such a weird thing with orcs because literally we've talked about orcs from the very beginning. And I had an orc army. I played one of our friends who unfortunately moved back east, or not back east. He moved to the east. He lives in New York now, who's a good friend of ours. He plays orcs. He's a diehard orc player and one of the saltiest men I've ever met in my life.
Yeah, a lot of salt in there.
He even asked one time, you know, what's the upgrade to salt? Is it onioniness? Is it garlickiness? Like, because he's just the saltiest person alive. Even when he's winning, he's salty, but it's part of his charm. I had an orc army, and I played against him multiple times with that orc army, and that was some of the most fun I ever had. But then, like, I put it away. And I never really understood why I put it away.
I think there's an element. I think everybody, maybe not everybody, but I think there's a good amount of people that really enjoy the list building. And I know I get a certain level of satisfaction out of that. Is like, list building is a really fun mini game of this game.
Yeah, I do like finding the thing.
Yeah, like I know there's a part of my brain that really enjoys like the satisfaction of like, if I took this and this and this, what does it add up to? And then it just adds right up to like 1998, and you find the 2 points exactly, and it's like 2,000 points. It's like, yes.
Yeah, you're definitely way more OCD about having exact points.
I hate having unused points.
I mean, I went into the last tournament 44 points down because I couldn't fill it in.
And I'm definitely one of those people where if I have like 3 units of Dire Avengers, right, they all have to be kitted out the same. So even though, yes, I could drop 3 points here, 3 points there to have one guy not have an extra gun, to me, that's insanity. I'm like, no, they've all got to be the same.
It must be even.
So I play these games where somebody's like, oh yeah, this guy has a different thing and he has a different thing. I'm like, how do you live with yourself?
But I think this is like the lesson that I'm coming full circle about with talking about commitment, is that my problem is that I really enjoyed the list building stage. I loved delving in and finding, you know, solving the puzzle that was the list building.
It's a really satisfactory puzzle to solve. So and you and I both have that.
Yes.
I've just been more committed to trying to solve a singular factions puzzle.
I want to solve all the puzzles, Jim.
Yeah, you're just like, but what if I figured it out?
Yeah. And then where I come back to this is that, like, because I was solving all these puzzles, I would play these one-time armies, and then if it didn't do well, then, you know, oh well, it's a failed idea. But if it did do well, then I have this like anxiety of like, oh no, I've invented a new idea that's the idea, and then everybody's going to start playing, and then I'm going to hate it. And I think this comes back all the way to 6th edition Tau. And playing Tau, because Tau, back in the day, Tau was my main army for a long time.
Yeah, for a while.
And in 5th edition, 4th and 5th edition, they were massive underdogs. Like, they were a very unforgiving army, and that's why I love them. I love their aesthetic. I love that if you made a mistake, it could be your life. I like playing living on that edge. But then 6th edition came around, and they got very good. And there was just aura, which Jay has experienced with Eldari, formerly Eldar, where you just get to the table and people just like sigh because they're playing against the faction
I gotta play
you
against
love.
Tau.
Yeah, and like it got to a point in 6th and 7th edition where like because everybody could take a Riptide Wing, it was just like, man, I just never want to play this army again I love because everybody hates it and it's just not a fun experience.
Yeah.
And so like I think that hung with me with all of these lists that I was creating, that I was afraid that if it was too consistently punishing, then it would become an it list again, and then I'd be like, oh, I spent all this time building this army and now everybody hates playing against it, and fuck, like.
Yeah.
But I think that's why I love orcs, is because orcs not only aesthetically are very silly, and they're incredibly fun to convert because their technology should not work.
And that's one of the things you love most about the hobby is converting.
And the fact that even though they can be unexpectedly very punishing, I don't think anybody's ever legitimately like consistently hated orcs in any of the metas.
I don't know. Even when they were very strong, like they're scary, and especially when the Ludabomb was very prevalent, it was very scary. But like they've never had, at least from my experience, they've never had that same branding that Eldar has had forever, right?
Yeah.
You know, and I've continued to slog through that for years. 6th edition, 7th edition. Oh, what do you got over there? Oh, you got a Wraith Knight? Is it a Scathach Wraith Knight? I'm like, no, it's just a regular one.
Yeah, well, and thankfully now that with the change to their psychic powers and some other things, like, I think they're back to an air of, like, it's not instant lose if you go against Eldar.
I completely think they're
suit.
in a balanced place. Now, I recognize that the flyer thing is definitely very powerful, and there's probably some things that need to be adjusted there. I don't know if that's a Craft Worlds problem. I think that might just be like a detachment style thing.
I think it's a game issue.
Yeah.
I don't think that's an Eldar issue.
Because to me,
I
like,
think that's a game issue.
I take 3 Crimson Hunter Exarchs, and I think it's perfectly fine. People kill them all the time, and they're not crazy overpowered. They're good, and they're great to have as an asset. But I don't think they're on any sort of broken level.
No, and I think part of the problem with flyers, now it's been addressed somewhat, is that I think they kind of poisoned the game because they had tactics that made the game not fun. Essentially, this thing that's flying high in the sky.
You can't touch it. And that's
blocking units.
That's the problem with it, really, is like it's not so much that it's overpowered, it's that it doesn't violate, but it
invalidates.
It invalidates so many parts of the game that make the game fun. Like, because it's not like 7 tanks are flying around your army. It's 7 untouchable, hard-to-shoot tanks. That's just like, oh, well, this is fun. I can't charge these things, and they're just high in the sky.
Yeah, and the answer is, why can't I move underneath them? Because. That's the answer to it, and it didn't have a logical basis to it, and that's... I feel like then when a person is using 6+ of them with that previous poisoning, that's where people go over the edge and get tilted a little bit because they're like, this thing is so dumb, and you've just taken as many as you can. But
don't get me wrong, like, I understand why it's happening, right? Like, there's a lot of good things in the game right now, and we'll talk about it a little bit, like, maybe predictions, right? But, like, I get that it's a really good build, and with the Castellan gone and a lot of similarly, like, natural predators of the plains.
Not gone. Just less prevalent.
Less prevalent. I get it. It's very competitive. You want to hardcore win that tournament, and you run Eldari, guess what? Probably should pick up 3 Crimson Hunter Exarchs and 3 Razorwing Jet Fighters and probably a Hemlock, maybe 2 more. Who freaking knows? Like, there's a lot of builds like that works very well, but is it really super fun? Is it in kind of the spirit of, like... And again... People can define the spirit of the game in many different ways, and I'm not here to plant a flag on one particular thing of what it should be, but I think people, if you took a sampling of 100 people and played against this list, I think a good majority would say it's a very good list, not very fun to play against. And I think there's a difference, right? There's a difference between a list that beats the crap out of you, but is like, that's a good list and it's interesting, and then there's a list that's just like, you feel like you're kind of riding the razor's edge of like, this is kind of a list. It's really playing in one big pool and taking a full advantage of one thing.
Yeah, well, I feel like it's 7th edition Knights, where if you went against a full Knight player in 7th edition, if you did not have the tools to deal with Knights, there were, 7th edition was a time where there were most of the units in the game couldn't even hurt a Knight.
Yeah.
It was literally just there.
Super fun.
And you couldn't do anything about it. And I feel like that's the problem with the plane list, is that once you get above 5 planes, is that just most...
I would say above 3.
Above 3.
Yeah.
Most armies in the game, like, just don't have the average tools to deal with something like that. And per what your statement is, yeah. I mean, it's totally legal. And even with the data slate, clarification, which they're just going to be adding more of saying, like, even though these things have a slight variance in name, they're the same thing. Because they did it with, Brood Brothers, and they did it with Demon Princes. I feel like we're just going to get more of those.
Yeah.
I do feel that, even though it's legal at the time, I feel like, there comes to a point where, like, maybe... it's such a hard thing to say, but maybe you shouldn't be playing a list like that unless you really, really love planes. But if you're...
Yeah, if you really love planes, then guess what? Great.
But but if you're just doing it to literally just punish your opponent for not thinking that you're going to take 7 planes, like, maybe that's not the best attitude.
And I will
to
say,
have.
most of the people I've asked who play that list, I'm like, why do you really like this list? It's usually, it's a very good list.
Yeah.
It's not like, I love planes, man. I've not a single person has said that to me. Now, if you love planes and you play this list, good for you. Have a great time. This is exactly what you wanted, and you got it. Otherwise, not super fun.
But yeah, coming back to with the orcs, the best part about the orcs is that every time that I've played with them, I've always had a fun time, and my opponents have always had a fun time. Now, not maybe consistently throughout the entire game, especially if I was rolling horribly, even though I shouldn't have been, or they were rolling horribly, even though they shouldn't have been.
But that's just the game.
That's just the nature of the game. But like, they have this air, this personality to them that
fun
appeals to me in a way that I can always, even when I'm doing very well, I can always be like, talking silly and saying, excusing my good rolls for bullshit orc reasons.
Yeah.
Like, well, Gork smiled upon me, but we're on a chaos landscape. That's his domain, bitch.
Yeah, and then if everybody dies, you're like, that's orcs. I got 1 million more of them.
Still won, even though I lost. That's not how it works. That's how orcs works, baby.
That's the thing. If they lose, it's never like, no, Captain So-and-so will never get to see the world of Ultramar ever again. It's like, yeah, all right.
And it's like, well, Bars Grab got killed. Well, it's my
Bars
turn.
Grab. Like, what was the name of your warlord? Snooty Booty Murderface. But Snooty Booty Murderface had a cousin or a brother or a sister. We don't know.
It doesn't matter. He's dead, and therefore, it's my time to shine.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I am excited because of this full circle that I've come with 40K to be able to play an army that I can just really dive into that has stuff that people may never use because reasons.
Yeah.
And I can have fun with and maybe actually do well.
Indeed.
So, I guess that's it, Jay. That's
all right.
it.
That was an interesting Caesars. It was like you had a universal Caesars last time, but this was like almost like a final Caesars. Like what, from the beginning to the end, what mistakes have we made and what have we learned? I really enjoyed that. And mine was a dumb story about me forgetting how far Terminators move. Fair enough. So, all right, everybody, we're going to now move on to our main segment and talk a little bit about some of the predictions or things that we'd like to see in the rest of the year and stuff coming out soon. And that'll take us to the Crystal Stacks. Here we are in the Crystal Stacks to talk about the future.
You just self-echoed.
What? No, it was this mysterious place. It's so mysterious. Mysterious.
All right.
You heard it that time for sure, right? That wasn't me.
I'm like a few feet away from you. I definitely saw you saying it.
Anyways, we were going to talk a little bit about what we're going to be doing in the future with our armies and talking a little bit about what some of our predictions might be that are always accurate and always will be. And no one can prove us wrong because this is the last episode. But also, if we had one ask to GW, what would it be?
Wish list.
We could reach out into the ether to the great workshop and have one request granted. So, First, let's talk about what are we doing with the armies going forward. You've talked a little bit about your orcs.
Well, I'm already stopping orcs. I'm back to town.
Oh my God, you do have a problem. We've learned nothing. The moral of our podcast: never change.
No, I mean, I can dive in first because I did a lot talking about orcs, but I also want to just talk about going forward with lists and everything. This doesn't mean that I'm suddenly stopping all armies ever.
He's changed forever.
It's definitely not true.
No, it's not. We know for sure it's definitely not true.
Yeah, I mean, since I already talked about this a lot, and I think moving forward, I need to have a level of stability, and I need to have an army that I can play and really take bites out of, and like get to learn and maneuver and get it to where I want it to be, and just play consistently. That doesn't mean I'm not going to be playing other armies. I still love the whole of 40K, and I want to experiment and do different things, but I feel like it's better to have what you have, which is essentially an army that I can focus on and play and have at the playable level and be painting, and then building something else on the side.
And then you can just, when you're building stuff, you're just trying something, a little extra spice in your regular dish that you always use.
And not have everything incomplete and in progress
you're
and
like,
never built.
I'm going from pizza to Italian to Chinese food. Like, you're just flipping all over instead of being like, well, this time in my pasta, maybe I'll try a little extra garlic. Or you know what? Maybe I'll throw some chicken in that pasta.
You mean refining the recipe as opposed to just throwing it away and then doing something totally different without any testing? Yeah. Yeah. So it's going to be orcs for a while. Eventually, I'll dive back into my Kroot GSC NIDS army.
Yeah, because I think that'll be really cool, but it is a long-term project.
That's going to take a long time to finish. And, people may be asking, well, the orc list that you're playing, it still has a lot of models and stuff like that, and you talk about you don't like hordes, and I was like, well, the thing that orcs has that a lot of what some of these other armies don't have is that orcs have a number of units that have kits that I actually like and don't need to change very much.
Yeah, which is great.
Like the Flash Git kit, which Flash Gits, as I've said in previous episode, is not only my favorite army in all of 40K because they're so hilarious.
You mean the unit?
The unit. What did I say?
You said army.
Army.
But I mean,
they are an army.
I mean, for you, they are an army.
Yes, they are an army, Jay.
What do you have, 30 of them, right?
I have 30 Flash Gits.
Boy.
Yeah, well, I was saying previously, before they got their codex and I played against our friend in New York, it was funny because he had a unit of 10 and I had 2 units of 10, so we had 30 total between us. And that game, because the orcs, the Flash Gits have a rule that if you roll a 6 after they fire, they shoot again. That game, we probably rolled a total of 8 or 9 6s. It was bonkers.
Wow.
Like, they shot so much. It was just like, they were all that was left.
That's a pure orc game right there. Just the most DACA.
And it was the joy of it. It was like everything was getting myrtleized like crazy, and we couldn't do anything but take a sip of our beer and just be like, well, that's where we are now.
That's what happens when you put 2 orc armies together.
But yeah, so it was a lot of fun, and I'll be diving in, really getting into like perfecting that army and making it very strong but very different, and then maybe building some future projects. And I'll probably as those projects, as I have a completed army that I can play, which will post pictures of my army and Jay's army, I can actually do work in progress then of the other army.
Yeah.
That's not my trying to be played army that's never built because I'm so slow at building things. I'm very picky. I nitpick.
You need that foot to look exactly right. And if it doesn't look right, I'm going to put green stuff on every one of those toes.
So his OCD is the pointsing and the rule of 3 in his list, and everything needs to be exactly in place. My OCD is when I'm building stuff, if it's not exactly perfect, then it's wrong.
Yeah.
And wow, once I see it, I can't unsee it.
Yeah, we have serious problems, just in different places. For me, I can't have a unit of 9 Storm Guardians and a unit of 8. To me, that's chaos. Absolute chaos.
It's odd numbers, Jay. You can't have odd numbers unless it comes with odd numbers.
Either they're both 9 or they're both 8. I can't live in this maddening world of 2 different types of units.
Yeah, but I mean, you can totally run 17 Guardians, right?
I don't like that at all. 15, okay. That's units of 5.
Power of 5.
Yeah,
then.
right? But I mean, 17, that's just absolute insanity.
What about 18? How about 19,
Oh,
Jay?
God. Disgusting.
Right on the edge there.
I think I literally removed an Autark from my list to put one more Guardian in to make it a full 20, and then I was like, what am I going to do with the rest of these points? Because it was just driving me insane.
I don't know, but if I don't have 20 Guardians,
I'm like,
then I
that
only have
Autark was
19.
getting me CP. Like, he was getting me stuff. I was like, nah, get out of here. So, yeah, we're very good at list building, is clearly what I'm trying to say after all these years.
But Jay, you going forward, I mean, I don't think Eldari are going anywhere.
No. Eldari aren't going anywhere. For me, though, lately, what I've been really playing around with is a new list style. I've taken out the Seer Council, put them to the side for a little bit. And I've done that a few times, but yeah, it's true. I've primarily had them in almost every one of my Eldari lists, and it's mostly because I play with them so much and I have a lot of fun with them. But I notice more and more, especially if we're getting into some more like competitive games, they rely so much on psychic powers. They absolutely do. Like, otherwise they just literally die. And they're very expensive. They're a 670-point unit for 10 of them. I mean, they're more expensive than previously the old Castle and Knight, because I think the new one is 700 now. But, I mean...
It's up there.
They're so expensive. And they're great. I mean, when they work, they really work. I mean, I had 10 of them literally take down 15 Custodi bike guys. Those Virtus Praetors or whatever. Like, they killed 15 of them and, like, 6 survived. So, like... They do some work when they're on, but there's a lot of like stress and luck and a lot of things that have to go right for all those powers to go off, and statistically they all shouldn't go off.
Yeah, I think what that comes down to is this aura of preciousness, where essentially they are a Death Star unit, and when the Death Star isn't on, it takes a lot of the wind out of your sails.
It does. And the new list I've been running 3 Night Spinners, 3 Crimson Hunter Exarchs, like I said before, but then I'm also running a big 20-man unit of Guardians. I don't know why I ever went away from this. When it first became a thing, when the Eldar Codex came out, and you could spend that 1 CP and put them up into space, or wherever the hell they go in the webway. And
do you even know where your army goes?
I always say in space.
We're like, in the webway
I'm like,
right
all right,
now.
I'm going to spend a CP and put those guys in space. And there was like, in space? I'm like, teleportarium. Same thing. They'll deep strike it. And they're like, oh, okay, fine. I'm like, but they're in space. And basically, it's amazing. 20 Guardians dropping in. And if you can spend the points to put platforms on them to make them more durable, platforms are the little 2-wound guns that come with them.
T5, right?
I think they're T4. They might be T5. I never know. It doesn't matter, because when you shoot at the unit, you're shooting at their toughness.
Yes.
So, like, it doesn't really matter, and they're always the first to die, because I put the wounds on them. They have 2 wounds, and they have a 3-up armor. So, like, they just tank those wounds all day long. And, but basically, the 20-man drops in, and they're like the Seer Council, but, like, a quarter of the points, if maybe less. And they put out 40 shuriken shots at 12 inches, and they're 20 bodies, so like they can take a punch back as well. And for 1 CP, you can make them 4-up invols with the Celestial Shield stratagem.
And 3-up invols if you get the...
If you protect
on them.
And that's the thing. They're nowhere close to the same cost, and they have a lot of the similar tools. So with the 20 Guardians and 2 units of Storm Guardians, I actually really like Storm Guardians these days. I've been playing them a lot. I like them because they're so cheap. 48 points for 8 guys. And you give them, like, for 0 point, you can give them what's called a chainsword. So each of these guys have 2 attacks. They hit on 3s. Like, they can go into, like, a crappy unit of, like, guardsmen or cultists or whatever, and, like, they hit on 3s, and they'll wound probably on 4s because they're probably hitting T3 with 16 attacks for only 8 guys, 48 points. I'll take it.
Yeah, I think you like them because they don't underfill. They are acceptable at their points level for the amount of damage they can do, and I think you really like them because they're unexpected.
Yeah, they're unexpected, and like I think you see more of them every now and then because like they're nice because they're cheap and they can like fill out a battalion. But I like that you can have them hold an objective, but if something gets close enough, like they can kill like a single Cabalette unit or a single cultist unit. Like they still have shuriken pistols for 12 inches. They have a plasma grenade, which is amazing, a strength 4 -1 damage grenade, D6 hits or D6 attacks. So, like, they're good for their points. And then, lastly, I've got 2 Wave Serpents, and then I've got this, like, little pocket of points that's left over. And this is what I've been playing with these days and trying to have fun with. Like, what do I do with these, like, 300 to 400 points that are left over? Because I really like the Night Spinners for backfield and dealing with things that are out of line of sight. They're amazing at that. Crimson Hunter's amazing at killing tanks and going up in recon and all that kind of stuff. They're great. The Wave Serpents are great at like holding the middle of the field, being really durable, screening out, and they protect my characters. Because in this list, I also have a Farseer on bike and a Warlock on bike. And they fly up and stay between the Wave Serpents, and it protects my characters at midfield and allows me to doom and jinx things further up. So it works really well for that different level of control. But I've got these 400 points. So I've just been trying out a lot of different things. I had 3 Autarchs on bikes with laser lance and fusion guns, and they're good, and they're a lot of fun, but when you have more than 1 or even more than 2, like, they start to become a little overly redundant, and you find that they can die pretty quickly, because they're only a 4-up invul and 6 wounds, or a 3-up armor on the bike.
They're a less tough Smash Captain, essentially.
Yeah, and they die just as easily, if not more easily than a Smash Captain. So they're fun, so I tried them out, but what I've been trying lately, and this is so interesting, because I've come full circle on them, now, of course, after they've gotten hit with the old Nerf bat, is I actually, in the recent games I played at my league, I've been trying out the Incarn, which is the Ynnari avatar. It's the avatar of Iniad.
I mean, you've just wanted to use an avatar.
And that's the thing. I have. God, I wish I could use the regular avatar. I know some people say it's fine, but I don't think he's great yet. I still think he needs either a points adjustment or a rules adjustment. Something in there is not exact. If I could quicken him, he'd be amazing. Remember when we thought, there was a time when Andrew and I were like talking about the Eldar list, and we thought you could give him the Phoenix Gem.
Previous Phoenix
Gem, when it was good, and now it's crap. But you give him the Phoenix Gem, you could quicken him. Like, we were like, dude, he'll never die. Like, he can't die in close combat because of the stratagem, and the Phoenix Gem keeps him alive from shooting. And, like, it was amazing, and then we're like, oh, you can't give him that. Oh, also, he can't be used on quicken. None of this stuff works. But also, I think we found out like all the warlord traits we wanted to give him like didn't work or something, or he couldn't be given a warlord trait, something like that. But anyways, the whole plans for the avatar fell apart, and I've had this ever since the triumvirate of the Eldar came out for Ynnari. Before, everybody hated and rightfully really didn't like Ynnari, especially this was in 7th edition at the tail end. When they first came out, like, those kits are beautiful, still beautiful.
Yes.
I think the Vizark looks awesome. I use him as my Autarch or previously my Ozerman when I would run Ozerman randomly. And it's an awesome model. The Vizark is still pretty bad, but model looks great. And the Incarn is awesome. This, like, avatar exploding out of this Wraithbone in the ground with, like, swirling ectoplasm all around her with, like, this giant, her or him, I've heard it both ways, with a sword in the air. Both. With a sword in the air.
Very like Slaanesh, both.
And the Incarn looks amazing. And I've never had a reason or a way to fit the Incarn into my list. And now I've got just enough points to slot her in there. And she's been really fun. And Ynnari are definitely in a different place. And I wish they had one more page of stratagems. They've only got 2 instead of 3, like you see in most books, and other books obviously have more than that.
But even Eldar players always wanting more.
But my one question to GW would be, if Ynnari is now entirely a close combat army, why? Why is there not a stratagem that lets them fight twice? Why doesn't that exist in an entirely close combat army?
Because you can't have your cake.
I can't have it.
And eat it too.
Or even just a cookie. I'll take a small cookie. I would consider this a cookie. But
one of the most misquoted quotes ever.
Of course. But and it's amazing too, because there are some stratagems in Ynnari that are just baffling to me. Like, I'm like, that is in here? There's a stratagem that, and I'll explain very quickly how Strength from Death now works. It doesn't let you do different actions anymore. It's if anything dies, they don't have to be within 7 inches of something for Strength from Death to go off.
Nope.
But as long as anything died in that turn, which it's Warhammer, something's going to die, they get Strength from Death. And what that means is they either fight first in close combat, or if they charged, they get a +1 to hit, which is really good.
Yep.
Like, for Harlequins, like, that's a good mask.
Hitting on 2s.
Like, I would just take that as a mask. Like, all my Harlequins hit on 2s. Thank you very much. Like, that's amazing.
And they're suddenly Slaanesh Demons.
Yeah.
Because that's always been their Quicksilver swiftness.
Yeah. But the thing is, there's a stratagem that is, I think it's like 1 CP. I hope it's only 1. If it's 2, it'd be like, why? So how the stratagem works is, if you pick a Ynnari unit, if it kills something with shooting, then it gets a +1 to hit. Now, what's odd about that is, if something dies in the turn anyway, and that unit charges something, it would get a +1 to hit anyway, because it charged. all this stratagem does, in the very limited situation that this would ever happen, is if a unit in close combat already kills another unit with pistols,
Yeah.
then it will get a +1 to hit the other unit it's still in close combat with. What? The most random scenario I've ever seen.
Or if you kill something in shooting, but then no, because it's only for that turn, right?
Yeah.
It's not for the battle
No.
round.
No.
Oh, so yeah.
Dumb. Very stupid.
I don't know.
But they do have some interesting stratagems, like one that lets your characters come back from death, which is amazing for the end card. Oh, wait, I think it might only be for infantry. That it doesn't work out the end card, but it works on other characters, and they've got really cool relics and warlord traits, but something to be desired with the stratagems. But regardless,
Yvraine is my favorite.
yeah, she's good.
I just love that model so much. It's
She's got a nice little cat. She's got that long flowing dress.
I mean, she's got a brassiere, and it's like the crazy hair and the dress and the cat. I'm like, this is just so 40K.
she wanted it all, and she got it all.
I mean, it's just so 40K. Like, that's the Eldari I've been waiting for, is the elegance of like it being like this crazy. Now the Vizark got close because he's got the fur cloak that's flowing.
Dude, he
and
looks
the big
awesome.
Sword.
He's got the
And I was
pimpin'
like,
fur, and he's got like masks all over his armor.
I want more of that. Like, I miss the 40K days of everything, or lots of things have banners that are totally impractical, but
Yeah.
it makes it so great. And you best believe that all of my orc characters have actually every orc that I have that's not a grot has a banner. Yep, everyone that's not a grot has a banner.
I love that.
All of my flash kits have banners.
They're like pirates. It's like having miniature sails.
Now, according to the fluff of my army, the three, because I am Blood Axes and Death Skulls are my 2 detachments. Even though I have 30 flash kits, which are freebooters, so I have technically 3 detachments. The Blood Axe battle wagons are on loan from the freebooters. That's why the flash kits ride in them. Is because they're rich and they've charged an insurmountable amount of teeth to the Blood Axes.
And they've pimped those rides. But they're pretty sweet.
But the Blood Axes put their own tactics into those things, which is I will get into in a second. So finish.
Okay. All I was saying is, what I'm going to kind of do going forward is really testing these last set of 400 points and maybe even playing with the battalion a little bit of like maybe not Wave Serpents and Storm Guardians, but maybe try Harlequins, but try maybe even Ynnari Harlequins, because I think there's something really cool with like some Ynnari Harlequins with getting that +1 to hit. There's a stratagem that Ynnari have where it's like a free doom in close combat, which is really good for Harlequins if the Troop Master isn't near them.
Well, I think the thing is that, and this is something we've mentioned previously, but you and I have found that as we've gotten older, that we need a certain amount of bonk with the pew-pew. Can't just go pew-pew. Can't just go bonk.
Got to have some stab.
Got to have a little bit, but more we were heavy pew-pew for a long time. But now we're like, man, it's just really fun to beat the hell out of things
Fun
in
to charge
combat.
stuff and just kill things in close combat.
So yeah, I think now that I think previously the problem that you had was that you didn't have a list that gave you a strong enough fire base to where you could solely focus on having the rest of your army be bonk. And I think that now that you have a 3 Night Spinner and 3 Flyer as a fire base, like you can literally, Jay, go Harlequins, man.
Just go nuts.
I mean, just put the Harlequins in, Jay. It hurts my soul that you don't play Space Clowns and literally all you talk about is Space Clowns. It's very disturbing.
Yeah. I'll figure out a way to get him back. And I'm playing with this list a bunch, so I'm probably going to tweak it and change it.
But let's be clear about the real reason you play the Incarn.
Yes.
Is because it's a thing made of ghosts.
Yeah.
And you are obsessed with ghosts.
Yeah. I friend most of the ghosts that are in this library.
I mean,
they don't call me back or want to hang out
You're
anymore.
taking Night Haunt models and converting them for your Necron list. It's literally turning them into ghosts.
Kind of like a trend. Weird.
You're a ghost person. It's just clowns and ghosts. You're just. It's funny that you have problems with horror movies occasionally because you just focus on clowns and ghosts.
They're
which
cool.
Is like
spooky ghosts, spooky clowns.
Because that's what everybody wants is a clown that's also a ghost.
Ooh, there we go. If they release that faction, I'm dumping these elves. Goodbye, elves. Just right into the trash. But yeah, that's what I'm working on going forward. I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, so for me, the talking about the bonk and the shooty, so in my opinion, flash kits have the most hilarious shooting in orcs. I mean, other than the super shotgun, which is just... If you don't know what a shotgun does, it's it's hilarious. Read the fluff of that weapon. It shouldn't work, and it does, and it's so.
And that's why it's great.
But I love that there are these orcs that are flash kits that focus on having these snaz guns, as they're called, which again, one of the best names of gun ever.
Oh yes.
That their greatest fun, very uncommon to orcs, is to blast things apart at range before the other orcs can get into combat, because it basically invalidates them, and that they are so pompous that they have to do that. Like they are outcasts.
They just love souring other people's day.
Yeah, I mean they're literally outcast orcs. All freebooters are outcast orcs.
They're pranksters, really, but they're pranksters through murder.
And they're super colorful. And it's another thing that's funny that occasionally, well, if you end up going your Harlequin army, then we will have two very colorful armies because freebooters are super colorful.
And to me, like, that's the Mount Everest for me of like painting. And I've you could probably attest, I've gotten better at painting over these last 5 years, and my God, I almost have a fully painted army.
I think that is your level of commitment. I think you could be better. You're better than you were, and you're at a good place. I think you could be much better if you just did it more consistently.
Well, you've seen it on like the few characters that I actually spent time on. They look good.
Because I think that's your hurdle, is that I never get to the point where I have a converted army that I can start painting. You get to the point where you're continually giving yourself more models to have to get the 3-color.
Yeah.
Instead of just,
But what's amazing is I'm very soon going to have almost an entire army of Eldar that is 3-color.
You've been saying that.
I know.
For so long.
I know. But I at this point, unless they make some dramatic change to Prince Uriel or like Warwalkers, like pretty much everything is 3-color now.
I'm writing this
down.
God.
But you've heard me say this before, take a shot.
But yeah, with regards to the mix of bonk and shooty, yeah, I mean, I got my snaz guns and I got my big mechs with shock attack guns for my shooty. But then, like, the bonk that I have in my army is, it just fills me with so much joy. The idea of battle wagons, no one uses them, and it's so sad. And like the Def Rolla on a battle wagon is a great melee weapon. And the problem that, the problem I've always had with transports, why I never use them, is because I have a problem having a unit that's literally just a taxi. And most of the armies I play, their transports are just taxis. I need a unit to be able to stand on its own like a Wave Serpent can.
Which is the best taxi, because what you're about to talk about is it has a very other unique quality to it that makes it amazing.
So if you don't know, battle wagons with a Def Rolla now, it's at full health, it's 6 attacks, it hits on 2s, it's strength 9, AP -2, auto 2 damage. Now, you're like, all right, that's like actually as good as most character combat. It gets better because they're blood axes, which means they can do the most hilarious thing, which is they can go in full reverse and then charge again after they've been in combat. So the idea of these giant pit bull trucks just with these mulchers, I'm modeling mine to look like giant fucking lawnmowers from hell.
Nice.
Ramming into things and then backing up and then just continually smashing into them.
Because they have that rule, they can fall back and charge again even if they fell back.
Yeah, blood axes, they can fall back and they can either shoot or charge when they fall back. So it counts as giving them essentially all fly or all kraken. And that's great.
Oh, yeah. And you can pick, which is amazing.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. You're using them like what I think why Wave Serpents are so good. It's not because you can transport guys in them, that helps, but Wave Serpents are really effective at just being freaking bullies.
Yeah.
Just being big, meaty shield bullies that just go out and tag things and block charges and just annoy things.
Still decent shooting, have a chance to do some mortal wounds, but then it's like when you start like bumping into the units that have the crazy Overwatch and you don't kill the Wave Serpent and then all the really flimsy stuff gets in, it's just like... God,
that's the best part.
Now for my battle wagons, ironically, they're the things that are going to be going with my trike that literally will just be smashing their faces into things continually. And if you don't know this, battle wagons are 16 wounds. And they don't actually degrade until they get below half of those 16 wounds.
Pretty good.
So they're really annoying, and they're super cheap, and I can just throw them with reckless abandon. And it just makes me...
And how many battle wagons do you have, Andrew?
I have 3 battle wagons.
How many flash kit units do you have, Andrew?
3 flash kit units.
How many grots do you have?
3 and 3.
Sounds like power of 3.
Wait.
You are blessed, my son.
Wait. 3 shock attack gun mechs as well.
Oh my God, it's glowing in here.
Wait. It gets better. The list is exactly 2,000 points.
I'm sorry. I gotta go down this hallway for a second. I'll be right back. I'm sorry. I just got really,
excited?
No. I'm trying to think of the word, but I'm just, I'm out of breath. Love that Power 3. So good.
Yeah, so it was when I built the list and it came out to exactly 2,000 and it was exactly powers of 3 everywhere, and I sent it to Jay and Jay was like, this is it.
Yes.
The apex has been found.
Apex Power of 3 Predator.
But yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun and I can't wait. And it gives me exactly what I want, which is silliness that also hurts.
Indeed. Now, we've talked about what we're doing in the future with our lists. We can make a couple random predictions of what do we think's coming out soon. I don't know. Probably Chaos Knights, and they're very good, probably.
Yeah. I mean, if it's at least on par with the Knight Codex, then
I think it will be.
They're going to be great.
Those kits look stupid, good, and cool. I'm not usually a Knights person, but they look awesome.
Yeah, I mean, they're super fun, and they have, like, no models, which is...
And I mean, and just giving them some warlord traits and some stratagems are really going to take, like, people take some them relics, now. And some cool relics, like, they're probably going to be really good. And I would say probably a bigger impact that we're going to see, although Chaos Knights I think are going to have a big impact on the meta. But I really think when we finally get that full complete release of Primaris Marines,
yes,
which I'd expect probably with how timeline's going, probably like end of summer, we're going to have like a big... into fall release.
I'm thinking August. I'm thinking post Gen Con. Like this is going to be like where the Gen Con is the final like teases.
That's a good point.
And then the army's going to drop, because if it goes against the same, or it goes with the same general timeline of Nurgle, then it was end of August.
Yeah, I think that's right. So I think we're going to see like, and I don't mean just like a book. I think we're going to see whatever else was meant to come out with Primaris, like the full complete line to really round out the army. And I think we're going to see Space Marines take a leap back onto that competitive shelf.
They're going to be so good. I mean, if the Vigilus attachments were any indicator, they are going to be a bully army.
And I'm excited to see, like, because I feel like, you know, you always look at, like, old Space Marines versus Primaris, right? And, like, what does old Space Marines have that Primaris hasn't filled out yet? And I'm interested to see, like, what the close combat unit is going to be. Like,
fill that gap.
Like, what is the thing that's going to be the new Smash Captain or the new close combat Terminators
Primaris.
Like, I'm really excited to see what they do there, as well as we've already seen pictures of other tanks and other like repulsor variations they have.
One thing that I'm predicting right now that I think is going to be a thing, especially because we got Custodes bikes, and now that everything that is Primaris flies, I think we're getting jet bikes for Space Marines.
That would be really cool.
I think that's going to be a thing. I think they're going to be Primaris jet bikes.
I'm excited because like we've loved the Primaris line. I mean, you run it in your Deathwatch army.
They're so pretty.
And I mean, I've said it around the time when they released those new snipers and the new infiltrators, like...
You're going to get a Space Marine.
I think I might get a small detachment when they finally have that full release, because I just love how they look.
Yeah, you're going to get.
And you know...
I know you.
Can you guess actually what... This isn't a normal faction. Can you get... not faction. I guess it's
chapter?
Chapter. Can you guess what chapter I actually really like the most? It's not one of the normal ones. It's one that I've always really liked. And I'll give you a clue. Well, if I say that word, you'll know right away. It's influenced by a cartoon way thousands of years ago, back in, they say the 80s, or maybe it was the early 90s.
Influenced by a cartoon.
It was about 4 friends who were different, because they were...
I mean, you're referring to the Fantastic Four.
No.
You're referring to Ninja Turtles.
Yes, but not Turtles. There were other group of 4 friends, like the Ninja Turtles. This is the most interesting podcasting. This is how we're ending the show.
Trying to guess
a
random chapter
with me giving these
I'm
dumb
literally
clues.
going through the list of chapters in my brain.
All I have to say
is it a book chapter or is it a Forge World chapter?
No, it's a book chapter.
It's
I believe. Oh no, I think they mentioned in the book. You know what? All I have to say
is it a successor chapter?
I think so. Look, they're just jawsome. Is all I have to say.
So Carcharodons.
Yeah, Carcharodons. Yeah.
I thought
are they
you were
in the
gonna
book?
They are definitely not in the book.
Oh, okay. They're not a Forge World one, are they?
They're definitely a Forge World.
Oh,
chapter.
only? Yeah, man, I love them. Space Sharks. They're amazing.
I don't remember what they are. I'm pretty sure they are a successor chapter. I just don't remember for which ones. But yeah, I mean, Carcharodons are great, and they are Space Sharks. They look cool.
It's awesome. They're like an interesting off gray. Like it's an interesting color. Like typically I wouldn't be the biggest fan of just a gray style, but I kind of like how they look typically.
They look like great whites, and yeah, I mean it's easy for gray to be boring, but their gray is not boring.
Yeah, but those are some of the things I think are probably going to come out. I mean, we know Primaris is going to get their own book, or at least a new Space Marine book in general with all their new fun stuff.
Yeah, but that's prediction shit. What do you want them to release?
So our asks. So if we each only had one ask to the Great Workshop, going out there into the ether in our final episode. For me, because I love Eldari, my kind of ask would be release new Phoenix Lords. Like, that's the one thing in the book, and I know it's unfair to say because there's so many good things in the Craft Worlds book, and I recognize this. But something that has, like, always bothered me forever is that they've got these, like, I think it's 5 or 6, like, master warriors that are literally like kind of pseudo gods for them that are in the book that nobody takes because they're not really that good. Like they're pretty expensive and they're not like incredible. Like when I compare them to other like book close combat characters, like even ones that are not like the super versions like Abaddon, but even like you could take like an orc war boss and buff him up to 11 with like cool relics and stuff, and he's far better than their best Phoenix Lord. Like, I would love to see new kits for the Phoenix Lords and just a slight tweak. Like, not really on points, because honestly, I don't care if they were expensive. I just want them to feel like Phoenix Lords.
I think the only one that could be argued is reasonably good is a Sermon. I think there's like an argument for Jane Czar and like a couple other things in very finicky lists. Honestly, that choice surprises me, Jay. I'm surprised that you didn't ask for something much more specific, which is special characters and more characters in Harlequins.
Yeah, no, that's actually the correct ask. I'm focusing on Phoenix Lords. Phoenix Lords is where I play.
You just want a Harlequin Phoenix Lord.
No, I do want just Harlequin Phoenix Lords. Really, I just want more in the Harlequin book. It's way too limited. I think, yes, you can ally them with Drukhari and Eldar, but I don't. No. I just want to play Space Clowns.
You want them to be essentially where GSC is now, as a standalone army.
And I think even the Custodes book had more choices in the Harlequin Codex, and now the Custodes book has like all the Forge World stuff. They've got this new freaking tank, this flying tank, and a crazy flyer, and Terminator.
You just want to be able to run Harlequins as a singular army.
With enough choices. Like, you literally can't do 2 battalions. You can't do 3 full battalions. No, you can't do 2 full battalions of Harlequins with all troop masters as the HQ because you run out. I actually think you can literally just do exactly 3 battalions
if you do
because
3
you do 3 Spirit Seers and 3 troop
Shadow
masters.
Seers and 3.
Yeah, Shadow Seers and troop masters.
Yeah,
and then you're out of HQs because they only have 2. And to me, I think a big miss with Harlequins, other than like release the mime, that was like an old thing they used to have. I think it was called a mime type of thing that was in the Harlequins.
Also, that the Solitaire is not an HQ.
Yeah, it's kind of dumb. But something that I'd like is just different options for those HQs. If you're just going to keep Shadow Seer and Troop Master, I want a Troop Master on a bike. I want him to be able to go with my Skyweavers. I want a Shadow Seer on a bike. Like, give me some more flexibility with those HQs and more flexibility with the options in the army. And I'll be happy as a guy who's still waiting on Phoenix Lords to be re-released. But still, that's you're right. That is my actual request.
I knew what the real.
But if you want to re-release those Phoenix Lords, I'm not gonna stop you.
For me, just closing it out, the thing that I've wanted for a long time, pretty much as long as I've played the army, is for Games Workshop to finally focus on Allies of Tau already.
Yeah.
And make Kroot at least usable. Make them like somewhat good, because they're just really, really bad right now. Like, even as a screen unit, they're a waste. Like, oh my god, they're just so bad.
And like, the opportunity is really there. It's in the fluff. They talk about how like they have those squid things that fly their or psychers or whatever.
Nikasar.
Yeah.
There's like,
we've talked about them on this podcast before.
Yeah, they even formerly had human allies because they do. They're called Gwevesa. Is humans that have abandoned the Imperium to go with Tau because they're like, hey,
why would they abandon the Imperium? It's so amazing.
Yeah, I'm sure I can't think of a reason why.
Not a single one.
But yeah, they have the Nikasar, which are like, they're like, if you play D&D, they're very much mind flayers. They're essentially squid people in space, but they're good.
Or what are those guys? The calamari people in Star Wars?
Mon Calamari.
Yeah, Mon
except
Calamari.
they're fish.
You know, they're like an appetizer. You know, you get them fried, delicious.
Wow, we went to a dark place, grimdark, in fact.
Well, we are in this horrible library, so.
But then, yeah, I mean, you have Kroot. You have to have the Vespid be more fleshed out would be cool.
Probably new kits for those Vespid.
New kits, yeah, that'd be great. So they're not all static in the same pose and break.
I think a full release of just Allies of Tau as a book would be amazing.
That would be great,
and it would give that army so many more dimensions.
Just variability, because they have the other problem. Unlike Harlequins, which is lacking in kits, Tau has the problem where they are still suffering that most of the army is not very playable. And so like, when was the last time you saw a Ghost Keel or a Storm Surge?
Yeah.
Or any of their flyers.
Yeah.
Or stealth suits, crisis suits, hazard suits. I mean, the list goes on. Like, there are just so many things that weren't fleshed out enough to where they can actually be played in a competitive way. And that's a hard thing coming from the two of us. But the point is I've tried. And
you did.
It is really hard. And I have a list that's composed entirely of suits. But the fact that I still have to take Fire Warriors as troops because it turns out CP is a thing and it's really valuable.
It is.
And, why can't stealth suits be troops? I still don't have a good answer for that.
You know what's amazing? I literally, until you just said that, I thought they've always been troops.
They are not. They are elite choices.
Huh.
Why aren't they troops? There's no good reason for why they're not troops. It doesn't make sense. Farsight lost the I thought they were gonna. His big thing was not gonna be some random close combat mechanic, which never works because you don't want them there. I thought that they were gonna have a thing where he still makes crisis suits troops. Nope. So it's just like, I mean, even the difference between crisis bodyguard and crisis suits, the only difference is that I think bodyguard have an additional close combat attack. Whoop-de-doo.
Oh, baby.
And
still hitting on fives.
And they can take, like, hits for characters that aren't infantry.
Cool.
Like, drones can't, like, they can take wounds for, like, long strike in a tank, and that's it.
Nice. What's better than throwing a small frisbee in front of a tank? Throw a giant person in a robot suit.
In a suit that costs millions of space money.
We could sacrifice these millions of drones we have lying around, or this expensive battle suit.
Combat veteran.
Yeah.
Where Tau only have like 100-year lifespan.
Yeah,
and these are the best they have.
They're like best fighter, and they're like, yeah, just jump in front of that bullet for us.
One step below a crisis commander, and yeah, we're gonna sacrifice them. Yeah, I mean, they just Allies of Tau make the army more interesting, please.
I agree. I very much agree.
Just throw it away, back to the drawing board. Because, I mean, you've even said this, is that the army's just not fun to play against. When you're just going against a wall that just stands there and shoots tons of bullets at you, and then you charge it, and it shoots tons of bullets at you, and you essentially can't interact with it with most armies.
Yeah, I mean, the drones even make it even... You have to wait till, like, turn 4 if you make it that long to kill all the damn drones to then interact with it.
I shot this Shadow Sword Volcano Cannon at this Riptide, but unfortunately it had this shield drone next to it that took the Volcano Cannon hit and survived because it rolled a 5+ for its one Feel No Pain roll.
Yeah. And by the way, we're referring to like the meta competitive Tau build. I'm sure some of you out there might run different Tau builds that are a little bit more fun or a little bit more unique, and that's not what we're talking about. But like when you play that like competitive Tau build of like 40 shield drones, 3 Riptides, 3 broadsides.
Fill the rest with Fire Warriors.
Fire Warriors and characters or whatever, and then they just sit in a corner and shoot at you forever, and then you just got to kill a million drones before you can kill anything is so fun. And also, like, I've played Tau players, and, like, they're not having that much fun with that list either. There's like, what do you do? It's like, well, I just sit in the corner, and I Kayun, and I shoot, and then I kill everything, and then I Kayun again with my... What's the lady that lets you do it twice? Shadow Sun. I Kayun twice, and then I shoot again and kill everything.
Yeah, I mean, like, other than our friend Jeff, who played Tau for a bit, the only other Tau player I've played in recent memory was at LVO, and even he wasn't having the best time with the army. And I'm just like, something's wrong here.
There's gotta be a little more spice in there, and that spice are squid people with psychic powers. Do it.
Make the chickens.
Make those chickens
Make
happen.
Make the chickens good.
Chicken and squids, the delicious dinner. But, right? On point. But guys, I think those are the our asks to the Great Workshop, our seizes, what we're doing with our army, what we're going to do in the future, are very accurate and always completely spot-on predictions that always come true. And I think this brings us to the close of our final episode of Roll to Seize.
The close of this adventure, this grand adventure that we're going to be leaving, at least for a while.
At least for a little while, Chaos spawns and all the responsibilities and things, but we might be back. But in the meantime, just want to thank everybody for the people who've been with us for 5 years, like the full 5 years. Thank you. You are insane now.
Yes.
So we're sorry about that.
You've been along too long. You are at like page 3 of the crazy book. You've drunk the Kool-Aid.
And I'm sorry to say, from our first episode, the Jokero hasn't gotten better with 8th edition.
Oh man, I looked, to try and do like a full circle thing,
Yep.
and turns out it's a single model and it's not even a character. So how can you use that?
Poor space monkeys flying in their geographic shaped ships or whatever the heck they fly in. I remember that though. That still sticks with me. I was like, God, that's so weird.
Yeah, that they're just like weird shapes and that
These geometric shapes that fly through space.
I think a Space Marine fleet tried to engage one once, and it returned fire with the entire firepower of another fleet, and they were like, "This was a bad choice."
Amazing. But yeah, so everyone, thanks for checking us out and following us for all these years. Or if you just came on, sorry this ended so quickly. But also, if you still want to hear from us and check in with us from now and again, we're still doing our other podcast, Wrath and Story. That's not changing. We're really enjoying the heck out of it. If you don't know already, Wrath and Story is our other podcast where Andrew and I are going on adventures with our Servo Skull companion, Daniel, playing through the Wrath and Glory RPG, soon to be owned by a different company now.
Yes.
They had it for a little bit, and now Wrath and Glory is going to a new company, which is exciting. They might re-release some of the rules, but we're having a lot of fun with the game. But if you like Warhammer 40k, if you like the Grimdark universe, if you like us, we're still goofing off and having a good time with that, so check us out over there. But otherwise, guys, this has been an amazing 5 years.
We'll see you down the road.
See you there. Bye. We're trapped in a library forever.